Introduction to Neural Networks. Neural networks, inspired by the structure and function of the human brain, are computational models composed of interconnected nodes called neurons. These artificial neurons process input data, perform calculations, and transmit signals to other neurons, mimicking the behavior of biological neurons in the brain. By organizing neurons into layers and connecting them with weighted connections, neural networks can learn to perform complex tasks and make predictions based on input data. Neural network architecture. The architecture of a neural network consists of multiple layers, each containing a set of neurons or nodes. The input layer receives input data, which is then processed through one or more hidden layers before reaching the output layer, where the network produces its final predictions or outputs. Each neuron in the network is connected to neurons in adjacent layers through weighted connections, which determine the strength of the signal transmitted between neurons. Activation functions. At the heart of neural network learning is the concept of activation functions, which introduce non-linearity into the network and enable it to model complex relationships in the data. Activation functions determine whether a neuron fires, that is, whether its output signal exceeds a certain threshold, based on the weighted sum of its inputs. Common activation functions include the sigmoid, tan, and rectified linear unit, ReLU, each with its own properties and advantages. Forward propagation. The process by which a neural network produces output predictions from input data is known as forward propagation. During forward propagation, input data is fed into the input layer of the network and propagated through the hidden layers to the output layer. At each layer, the input data is transformed by the weighted connections and activation functions of the neurons, producing increasingly refined representations of the input data as it passes through the network. Loss functions and backpropagation. To train a neural network, we need to define a loss function that quantifies the difference between the network's predictions and the actual target values. The goal of training is to minimize this loss function by adjusting the weights of the network's connections. This is achieved through a process called backpropagation, where the error signal calculated by the loss function is propagated backwards through the network, allowing the network to update its weights in the direction that reduces the error. Gradient descent and optimization. Backpropagation relies on the principle of gradient descent, an optimization technique that iteratively adjusts the weights of the network's connections to minimize the loss function. By computing the gradient of the loss function with respect to the network's weights, we can determine the direction in which the weights should be adjusted to reduce the error. This process is repeated iteratively until the network converges to a set of weights that produce minimal error on the training data. Training data and iteration. Training a neural network requires a dataset containing input-output pairs that represent the relationships we want the network to learn. The network is trained by iteratively presenting these data samples to the network, computing the loss, and updating the weights through backpropagation. This process is repeated for multiple epochs until the network's performance converges and the loss on the training data is minimized. Generalization and validation. Once a neural network has been trained on a dataset, its performance is evaluated on a separate validation dataset to assess its ability to generalize to new, unseen data. Generalization is the ability of the network to make accurate predictions on data it has not been trained on, and it is a crucial measure of the network's effectiveness and reliability. By validating the network's performance on unseen data, we can ensure that it has learned meaningful patterns and relationships from the training data. Transfer learning and fine-tuning. In some cases, we can leverage pre-trained neural networks and transfer their knowledge to new tasks through a process called transfer learning. Transfer learning involves taking a neural network that has been trained on a large dataset for a specific task and fine-tuning its weights on a smaller dataset for a related task. This approach allows us to benefit from the knowledge encoded in the pre-trained network while adapting it to new tasks or domains. In conclusion, neural networks learn through a process of iterative optimization, where input data is processed through layers of interconnected neurons, and the network's weights are adjusted to minimize a loss function. By leveraging activation functions, backpropagation, and gradient descent, neural networks can learn complex patterns and relationships in data, enabling them to make predictions and perform tasks with remarkable accuracy and efficiency. As we continue to advance our understanding of neural network learning, we unlock new possibilities for artificial intelligence and drive innovation in fields ranging from healthcare and finance to robotics and beyond.